Hello and welcome back to the radio room. It's been a little while since I've had a video out, a little over a month, probably closer to 2 months. Had a few things going on that kind of precluded me from being able to do any videos lately. Had a loss in the family. My father had passed away a little over a month ago, and that took a lot of time just trying to deal with some of that stuff, and just needing some time to take care of that. So we're back, gonna get into working on some radios and stuff again. Finally got a chance to get out here and make a video, kind of let y'all know what was going on. Like I said, my dad had passed away, so beyond the just needing some time for that, lot going on, trying to take care of everything that needed to be taken care of on that. I did get some opportunities to get out here into the radio room and do a little bit of work, a little bit of self-therapy, I guess you could say, but it was definitely something I didn't want to do on camera. With an audience, just needed some time to myself and digging around in some electronics and whatnot. So I've done a few things out in the radio room, just nothing on camera. And in this video, I kind of want to touch on a few things that I've done in concerns to being able to work on that FT101 original. No AB or anything like that. If you remember, and this has been a little while back, the radio we got it receiving again. It's receiving pretty good. And we got the trying to remember. It's been a little while since I've actually been on my radio, but we had the sideband that wasn't working right, and I think I figured out what was wrong with that, and you're gonna love it when I find it. But in order to do some stuff, I needed to be able to get into the radio and actually find out where the signals are going through it. We had talked about the ring modulator maybe being bad, the diodes in it, if I remember correctly, in the previous video in that series. But I wanted to make sure that where exactly was it stopping? Was it Q? I think it was Q1 or whichever transistor it was that we thought tested bad, but it didn't. Put that one back in, still couldn't get single sideband out of it. So I needed to be able to find out, well, where is the signal stopping? And I had mentioned before that maybe I just needed to build a signal tracer. And I also needed to have a way to put a signal in through the microphone, besides me trying to whistle into a microphone. Because I cannot whistle worth a darn on a precise note for an extended period of time. That's what they make signal generators for. So on the bench here, I did build a couple of things. I know I misspelled that. I noticed that afterwards. It needs the R in interface. After you stick it on there and you actually use it, and you're looking at it and going, something don't look right. Well, yeah, forgot to put the R in the old label maker. But this right here is I just called it a mic tone injection interface. Or in this case, it's an interface. As you can see here, we got a spot for signal generator comes in here. You can just use 50 ohm lead there, BNC connector. I also wanted to be able to see what I was injecting in here. Main reason for that is due to the fact that this is the signal generator's got a 50 ohm output impedance. And after running through here, there's some wires in there. Basically what this does is it just takes the signal. You can see where it says to radio. In this case, I got a cord here that I built that connects to an FT101. It's just a straight through cable. It doesn't matter which end goes to the radio or which end goes to this. But basically, it just plugs in there. There's a 4-pin mic connector on there, and it's wired up to go to the FT101. Inside of here, I also made it so that I could disconnect. I could change the way these pins were. Let me just go ahead and pop this thing open, and we'll take a look on inside of it. I might need to get a little more light here in just a moment. I was trying to do this. The tags were really washing out when I had the light on. Let me turn some more light on here. Well, that doesn't work much better either, does it? Let me try best light, which isn't too bad. Let me just kind of show you what this is. Really straightforward inside of here, but I can show you what I got going on here. I just wanted something that I wasn't running alligator leads. I wasn't trying to figure out how to do this, do that in some odd way. I mean, it's pretty simple in there. These are these posts here. Basically, the signal comes in here from the signal generator and goes over to this block here. The ground, is pretty much common inside there. But what this does is it lets me, see, this wire's not going to anything. That's because that pin's not used on the FT101. So this switch here just turns the PTT on or off. That way I can key the radio. I don't have to be holding the button or going to the switch on the radio or anything. Turns that on or off. I also have what I'm calling an oscillator tap, because once that signal comes in here and it's playing through these radios and impedances change, I wanted to know at the point where it's going to this, I wanted to be able to see the signal that I'm putting into it. That way I can measure it. Is it really what's my signal generator saying? If I got it set at 50 millivolts, am I still getting 50 millivolts at least to this point? It might be a little bit different by the time it gets to the radio, but at least gives me a chance to know that there's something going in there, making sure this is working right, and that I have some sort of level or a clean sine wave. My signal generator starts getting a little wonky when you start getting down on real low levels. It's just not quite as clean of a signal. So I wanted to be able to measure that, so that's what I can do right here. I can just plug this into the oscilloscope, and I can see the input signal coming in here and then come out to the radio. Like I said, I can key the radio or unkey the radio, which is the flip of that switch. And I made this, you can see these are numbered right here. I can check, like in this case, PTT is connected here, which is going to this wire here. There's also a jumper in here because these two have a common PTT, and the mic go off the same ground, the same pin. So I can change these, which one's the PTT, which one's the audio, the microphone input, so to speak. I can just use these little blue blocks, move the 4 wires around in here as I need to, depending on if say I'm hooked up to another 4-pin radio and the pin out's not the same. I can change the wires in here pretty easily just using these binding blocks and change what's going out here. In the future, I'm probably going to either improve this or build another box that'll come out of here. It'll be a standard. I'll just have a standard pin out coming to here. It'll probably be this one. I'll probably just leave it in FT101 configuration on the pin outs. But I might need to actually do it so there's the full 4 coming out, come into another box, and then I can have binding blocks or little jumpers in there, so I can go to any 8-pin, 6-pin, anything like that. Have even like RJ45. I could still have something coming out, and I can just switch those real quick instead of having to, you know, change a connector, unsolder a connector, and fix something in there. So that's basically making it so I can inject a signal into the radio and still be able to work. I'm not clipping things inside the radio. A lot of radios, when you're working on them, they, you know, in the service manual or whatever, they'll have a spot where it's saying, hey, inject this much signal into the microphone connector. Whether you're setting like mic gain or maybe carrier levels or something like that, you know, you need to put some audio into the radio. And even if nothing else, some radios don't have a transmit switch on the radio, and you don't want to be just pushing a microphone button the whole time. Or maybe you want to be able to key a radio that doesn't have a switch on it, but you don't want any audio coming in. I mean, I can still use this to just key and unkey a radio. So that comes in handy. You can just hook it up, stick it off to the side. You can key the radio, unkey the radio, and you got the tone going in without having to actually grab a hold of anything or hold on to something at the same time. And then this is a very simple, kind of crude signal tracer. I'm just using a oscilloscope probe as my probe. If you guys have done any looking online for signal tracers, or you know, like DIY signal tracers, anything like that, this is quite similar to most of those that you'll see out there. A lot of times they have you build a probe. You know, a lot of times, you know, you might use something like this as a body, and you got circuitry inside of here, and you build a little probe coming out, you know. On those plans that you see online, this is basically the same thing as the ones that they build into these. I just didn't want a fat probe, and I wanted it to be a little more contained, and I wanted to be able to switch it easier between audio frequencies and RF. So basically, most of those signals that you see, or most of those plans that you see, I just built into this box instead of into the barrel of an actual probe. And this is, I mean, this is pretty simple as well. It's basically got a couple blocking capacitors, 630 volt blocking capacitors. Reason for that is if you're working on something and say it's you touch a pin or need to touch a pin that's got 300 volts on it, 150, 200, 300 volts on it, with your signal tracer, you don't want 300 volts DC going into whatever you're using as an amplifier, or you're not going to have your amplifier anymore. So it's pretty simple. I mean, we just got some blocking capacitors on both sides, the positive and the negative side of it. I do have some resistors in here. I made a little bit of a voltage divider, mostly because it seemed like it had a cleaner signal. When I was coming straight off of the input, you know, just on the other side of the blocking cap, it had a lot of harsh to it, a lot of high-end static, I guess you could say, you know, high tone static to it. So I put a little, I mean, it's a pretty high resistance across the positive and negative here, but it just seemed like it made a little bit cleaner tone. It did attenuate it a little bit, I'll give you that. It's not quite as sensitive as it could be, but it had a more pleasant tone to me. I mean, this is just something I slapped together so I could do some signal tracing. The amplifier I'm using is actually just a car stereo with an auxiliary input that I use here in the radio room. And right down in here, you can see that little diode in there. That diode is basically kind of connected to this switch. When I'm in audio frequency, that's basically not in line. That is basically just a very simple rectifier. It's just a germanium diode. So when I go to here, it actually puts that in line, which will cut the RF out of it and basically consider it an AM detector. It basically makes it so it demodulate an RF signal that has an audio component modulated into it. So quite simple. You can find plans for these things pretty much all over the internet, all over YouTube. A lot of times, like I said, that all this is in here, and you could even have a little slide switch on here to do the same thing as putting that diode in and out. So, like I said, I'm just using an 1/8 inch audio cable. Runs over to the audio input on a car stereo, basically. And that's what I'm using as the amplifier. So this is just basically making it so I can take a signal from somewhere in a radio and inject it in there, and then I can actually hear it. And I'll see if I can get things set up here in just a moment to kind of demonstrate that, and we'll actually do it on the 101 that we were trying to signal trace to try and find out why the sideband is not working. Spoiler alert, the sideband's working now. I've had a little time, like I said, to come out here, and I've actually done this on the radio and went through and to find out what was going on, and well, I found something out. And it's nothing that I even would have thought it was. But that's the way things go sometimes when you're working on things. You find something that's just cannot figure out why it's going on, and then you find the most simplest, almost stupidest reason why it's not working, and then it's working. That radio has been on the air, by the way. I did talk to another local ham on it across town, and we had a pleasant conversation on that radio. So the sideband is working. So let me let's see here, get you a little more update on the radio room here. In one of my previous videos, and I believe it's either in this series with the FT101, or I think I mentioned it in the previous series, which is still ongoing, the FT101E. My actual FT101, which, by the way, we're not done with that one. It's just this next 101 came in, and it's not mine. It belongs to somebody else that's wanting to try and get it running again. He hadn't used the thing in 13 years. It had been sitting on the shelf for 13 years, and he kind of wanted to have the radio back. He kind of wanted to be able to use it again. It was his first HF radio. He wants it running. So we're going to do the best we can to get that one, and that's the FT101 with no letter. The series that we're pretty much going through right now. The 101E, basically I've put it back in the case. It's back up on a shelf. We're going to come back to it. I just want to get other people's stuff, radios, taken care of, and then we'll move back to mine. But in a previous video, I had mentioned, when it comes to 101s, you get one in here, they bring friends. Now, mind you, my 101E right now, it is back up on a shelf in a cabinet, waiting to get back to it. However, 101s have friends, and they like to show up with more friends. So the one on the right is the one we've been working on. That's the 101, no E, no B, no nothing. The one on the left is, you can see that there, an FT101EE, which basically means it doesn't have the processor in it. It showed up too. So now there's actually 3 101s in the radio room. And trying to work on 3 of them right now. Actually, just 2. Just 2. These 2 right here do not belong to me. so we're trying to get them done first. It's just been a little bit of a slow mix. Like I said, it had a lot of stuff going on that had nothing to do with radios. The 101E we're also going to take a look at. I've already done some look at it. You can see it's upside down. I was taking a look at some stuff on the bottom side of the radio. It has no output. It has no bias. You go to bias when you're trying to tune everything up. You flip to IC. You get no needle movement when you transmit. So trying to figure out what's going on with that. It could just be tubes. I don't know. The owner had stated that there had been a little bit of a mishap with the microphone wire. It had gotten pinched or something, and there was some shorting in the microphone cord itself, which had basically keyed the radio. When he had tried to set the radio back up, from what I understand, to use it, he didn't realize that there was that short, and he turned the radio on. I don't know the whole story, but obviously it wasn't receiving. And in the process of trying to figure out, well, why is this thing not receiving, playing with everything like that, he noticed that it was actually keyed. The radio was actually keyed up, and not keyed up and tuned. So I'm not sure if maybe a few minutes went by with the tubes, just the whole output just not tuned, and it took out the tubes, or what's going on. I did try to just set I pulled the tubes out of the one on the right and set it in there, put them in it, mind you, without the microphone connected. He had actually already fixed that connector. But by the time everything had gotten done, he had a radio that received, but it just no output. I did swap the tubes over just real quick to see if I could get bias with some different tubes, and no good. So we got to figure out some more things on that. I'm not sure. It does have bias voltage. There is voltage going to the appropriate pins on the final tubes. They seemed a little. Well, this is a relative statement. They seemed a little too high, too low. What do I mean? The bias is a negative voltage. It had like negative 84 on receive and like negative 70 when I went to transmit, which seems a little high or low. Depends on how you look at it. The number's too big of a number. So if I remember correctly, it's in transmit, I want to say you have about negative 50 on the bias pins, or on the grid pins, in order to turn the tube on. It's still got controlling there, and then of course it goes to a more negative number when you have it in receive, which turns the tubes off. So I'm going to have to get in there and find out if there's anything flowing through the tube or not. Might have to swap the tubes over again, because the one on the right, the tubes are good. And I'm not transmitting so much with these. I had the carrier turned all the way down. I wasn't really taxing the tubes. It's hard to do a neutralization when you can't get the tubes tuned first for 28 megahertz. But we might have to kind of figure some stuff out on that. Yeah, we'll get that one figured out. But like I said, you get 101 in, they bring friends. So why don't I go ahead and just real quick, I'm going to get the 101, the one on the right there on the screen now. I'm going to get it back over here on this other bench. Let me see if I can kind of hook my signal tracers and my injection thing up to it real quick. And I'll just kind of show you how it kind of works. And then I'll tell you what I figured out about the single sideband. You're going to laugh. You're going to laugh. So let me get to that. Let me move some stuff around, and we'll see if we can't get that over here, and then we'll discuss this radio a little bit more and what I found out. And Trust me, you're gonna laugh. Alright, and we're back. Let me get you over to looking at what we're looking at here. Here's the bottom side of the FT101. When you're working on a 101, the prescribed, let me get this out of the way real quick before it falls and makes not so pretty show. Normally when you're working on a 101, if you're looking through a lot of the repair literature, service manual, stuff like that, they talk about extender boards. And that's to take each one of the boards and raise it up so that you can probe along the pins of it or anything on it. I don't have extender boards for a 101. And if you guys remember looking at the top of the 101 where all the boards are, the card sockets are pretty far down in there, and it's pretty much impossible to get down to the pins to check the pins. So you could make extensions up of wire in order to test that, or if you're just needing to get to the pins and not a specific point on the board, you can flip the radio over, and here are these are the bottom sides of those card slots. So you can still get to the pins. You just have to flip it upside down. This normally the speaker is right here. It's 3 screws. Carefully bring that out of the way and set it off to the side. Just be careful of the wire right here. But you can get to the pins, and they're actually numbered. There's numbers for every pin on here, so you can still get to it. You can still check, what's going into a board, what's coming out of a board, check voltages to the board, the pins, everything like that right here. I think about the only one you might have difficulty with is the RF board, which would be down in here. So this would have to come out. I'm not sure exactly how easy that is, but the other boards, the IF board, the audio board, the modulator board, you can get to pretty much every pin on that with the radio upside down, the speaker out of the way. So, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I did go through this to see if I could get how the audio was going through the radio as far as a path on transmit. And that's why I built the signal tracer. I got my injection deal with the PTT on it. The radio is, of course, upside down right now. I've set it up. It is the output is tuned right now to what would be right for the frequency I'm on. I'm on an 80 meter frequency. Looks like it'd be about probably 3750 or something. It's not really crucial. It's into a dummy load. I'm not even going to turn the heaters on to do this test. I did load it up just in case I wanted to turn the heaters on, actually put some output out. But you don't need to have the heaters on to do this. We're not actually going to transmit. We just need to find out if anywhere where the sideband signal is stopping. Now, I'd already ascertained that the radio works in AM. So we really only need to work and check the single sideband path, which the 101 has a slightly different path for AM than it does single sideband after the AF board. We had the ring modulator, remember that one? We also had the JFET that we were suspecting. They're all in the single sideband path. Basically from about the input to the modulator board back to the microphone is common both ways, and after you get off of the out of the I guess it's the HF board, the one that's right behind the VFO. If you got it flipped over, it's the little can deal. When you can get to the pinouts on that one too. So let me go through here and kind of trace the path on this. I'm hoping you guys are going to be able to hear this. I do have the signal tracer going through basically it's a car stereo. Speakers over in the corner. It's a multi-purpose car radio. It's I do everything from listening to AM, FM on it to my computer runs through it for audio. I got the auxiliary input on it right now for this. I don't have a lot of gain. The thing's basically turned up all the way. What I'm in probably end up having to do in the future is redesigning my signal tracer. And if you remember, if you look back in it when you're looking at it, it said version 1. Because it's not going to stay version 1. At some point in time, I'm probably going to build a preamplifier. An active probe, basically, would it be. That'll have some amplification to it as well, so that these really tiny signals, I don't have to have the car stereo cranked up all the way just to hear it. But so I've got the tone injection interface turned on, in line. It's hooked up to the. Let me see if I can just do this real quick. You guys might get a little bit of a shaky camera here, but I'm going to move the camera around. So I got my signal tracer up here, or my signal generator up here. I've got this coming out. It's going into the the tone injection right here. This is going over to the radio. I do have my oscilloscope hooked up to it, and of course we got the PTT right over there. It's coming over to the radio, the PTT right there. So, and I got the signal tracer over there. There's my probe, and it's heading over to the car stereo. And just to let y'all know, if I do turn on the signal generator, we do have, that is a 1000 hertz tone that we're going to be using right now. So let's go through this a little bit. So I've got the signal tracer set on audio frequencies right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I got this sitting at about 30 millivolts. And let's see if we can hear as we go through the path here. So first off, I don't have the radio keyed at the moment. I'm going to just ground my probe somewhere safe in the radio. Hopefully safe in the radio. And I do have the audio generator on. Of course, the 101, the way it's wired, it's going straight through my interface. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, we do have, hoping y'all can hear that. I'm just going to turn up the signal generator a little bit so maybe you guys can hear it a little bit better. Okay, that was just for an instant. I don't want to overload anything into the radio. But if y'all can hear that tone, that's just at the back side of the microphone jack. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the radio on. I'm leaving the speakers off. Hopefully you're going to be able to hear this with the fan and everything going. But the next spot that we would need to go would be making sure that we have audio through the audio amplifier. So let me just look up real quick. I just did this a few minutes ago to make sure everything was working. But I'm going to look up where the audio is coming out of the audio board, which should be pin 8 of the AF board. And we should actually have a higher level when we get to that one. Now I'll have to key the radio when I do this because the audio circuit, well, let me just show you. Right there is the pin that comes out of the audio board. So basically we're going from the microphone, it goes into the audio board, goes through a mic amplifier, and now it's supposed to come out of this pin to go over to the modulator board. Can't hear anything right now, but definitely a lot louder there. So let me do this. Can barely hear it coming off the microphone connector. Oops. So we definitely have amplification there, and we know that the signal is getting through the audio amplifier, and it's being amplified. So it goes over to the modulator board after that, and we need to make sure that it's getting through the modulator board. Well, the output for single sideband on the modulator board, now this is single sideband. AM's got a different output because it runs through different circuitry on the modulator board. We want to go to pin 12 off the modulator board, which is going to be right there. And I am sure y'all can see that. Let me get this. Let me move this out of the way. So right down in here, it's kind of close to this end of the card socket. Right there is going to be our output from the modulator board, and it's going to have, in this case we're in lower sideband, so it's going to already have mixed not only the audio coming out of there, but also the 3.783 or something like that megahertz signal in with it for lower sideband. So let me key the radio, and I want to show you something that's very important about the signal generator. See, before I just had this in audio frequency. It's just running straight through the signal tracer to the amplifier, which is the car stereo. And if I key the radio and touch that, you can't hear anything. There's just a little buzz. That's because now it's at an RF frequency. So I'm going to flip the switch to RF. Let me see if I can show that to you. This right here. I've got it switched over to RF. Now let's put that germanium diode in there to use as a detector. And now you can hear it. So let me just show you the difference there. I'm going to go over to AF. Can't hear it. Now we're demodulating a signal now. So now we can hear it. So from here on out, we're going to be dealing with RF frequencies that are mixed with that audio signal, and we need to detect it out of that RF signal. So now I've got that detector in line. Okay, so that's coming out of the modulator board. We still have tone. That's good. Where do we need to go next? From that, and 101, after it comes out of the modulator board, it's going to go to the IF board. And I believe that is from the modulator board, it goes over to pin 15 on the IF board. The IF unit, which is the furthest one over. That's the one that's got the big filters on the side of it, those big can filters. One, maybe two of them, depending on how your 101 is set up there. So we're going to go to pin 15. Like I said, these are marked. So let's see here. 18, let's see, 16, 15 right here. Let's see if we can get something. Let's make sure it's getting over to the IF board. So key in the radio, and it's making it there. So it's making it into it. Now let's make sure it's making it out of it. So I believe that is, I want to say pin 10. Let me find it in my paperwork here. Basically, I'm looking at, I've printed out some pages from the service manual where it talks about each board. It's basically like these pages. That's the audio board right there. Okay, so here's the IF unit. I've been using pages like this. So, let's see here. Like pin 15, that's the one I just checked. It says IF from noise blanker unit, or if you got a that'd be like more like an E model. Or double sideband for modulator and oscillator unit, so 15. So that's the one. This was going back over to pin, see, via pin 12, which is what we had just checked, and then we checked 15, so it's making it in here. Then this guy goes to the amplifier. The first the IF amplifier, it's going to go through the CW switch. Now, mind you, we don't want to follow the hatch lines. We want to follow the solid ones. So then it goes to the sideband filter, out through the other side of the sideband switch, and then out through pin 10, and it's going to go to the crystal control and RF speech processor unit if you have that in your radio. So we're going to go to pin 10. Okay, so that would be right here. And I'm going to key the radio. Now, you probably can't hear that. I'm just going to turn this up for just an instant. I hope y'all could hear that. I don't want to overdrive the circuitry too much, but I turned up the signal generator a little bit just so y'all can maybe hear it, but I could hear it. So we know it's making it it's making it into the microphone connector over here. You can't see it on the camera. It's getting into the audio board. It's coming out of the audio board amplified. It's making it over to the modulator board. It's making it out of the modulator board. We checked that. It's making it over to the IF unit. We checked the input. We just checked the output. From there, basically from here, it's just going into the RF stages of the radio in order to make it in the right frequency. So before we get to the driver, because we know our drivers are working, once everything comes to the driver, whether it's AM, CW, single sideband, whatever, that's all common to all those modes. We just want to deal with the single sideband. So the next step is I'm going to go over here to this, and I'm going to see if we got a signal that's got a tone on it coming out of here. That's the last step before it goes to the driver. So let me find the what should be pin 16, and I can hear that. Turn it up just for a second. Hope y'all could hear that. So we know that single sideband tone is making it basically all the way through from the microphone. So the next step is the drivers, and we know the drivers are working. So I ran through this test, built the signal tracer, got the injector going on, everything like that, and I traced it through there, and I'm like, well, why don't I have sideband? This is where it gets funny. So I am going to turn the heaters on and let them start warming up. And I'm going to grab a microphone. I'm going to go grab the microphone that I was testing this on. Now, first off, I've actually tested this radio with 2 different microphones. And I am going to try and get this also set up so we can see some stuff here in a moment. So let me just do a little bit of a check there. Okay, yeah, you can see my power meter right there. Okay, so first off, the first microphone that I checked while we're waiting for those tubes to warm up was one of these. I was like, well, that's not really sure if it's a D104 a static actually or just a clone, but that was the first one I used. Keyed, I put a microphone connector on it, and it would key the radio. I'd get some AM through it. Didn't seem quite right, but it was going through there. And a single sideband, absolutely nothing. And I just didn't like it. It didn't seem right. I was like, well, normally a D104 will work on a 101. This doesn't have the original mic element in it. This has probably got like a 500 or 600 ohm impedance microphone on it. So I grabbed a different microphone. One of these. It's actually a Kenwood, but it's basically a microphone that should work. It's got selectable impedance. I can run it either at 500 or 50K impedance. Well, guess what? 101s want 50K, so I'm like, well, I'm in business. So I actually hooked up, after running through there, doing the signal tracing, I was like, well, this thing ought to work. But it didn't. You can see it works now. That's just me blowing into the microphone. Audio. So that's pretty good signal coming out. But it wasn't even doing that when I hooked the microphone up and after I had already signal traced it. Well, here's the funny part. See that little switch right there? It says 500, or it says impedance 500 or 50K. Well, I had it up on 50K. Well, I'm playing with this thing, getting pretty frustrated. Why is it now not working? Is what's going on? And I was playing with this switch, and there was a spot. This switch was dirty. That's all I was getting. Nothing. Right like that. Play with the switch a little bit, and I start to maybe get something. Audio. So the whole time I was testing this radio, saying, hey, there's no sideband on this thing. It wasn't even the radio. First off, the first microphone I was doing had the totally wrong impedance, and you just can't drive a 50K ohm radio with a 500 ohm microphone, unless you got a preamplifier in line with it to buffer between those differences in impedance. And then when I put a 50K ohm, what I thought microphone in line, the switch is dirty, and it still seems like it's dirty. I'm probably going to have to take that microphone apart and clean it up a little bit. But once I did that, and it was more of a happenstance. My finger happened to brush across that while I was trying to all but yell into the microphone to see if it would do anything. And I noticed it twitch. And even before, when I was doing some testing, every once in a while, it would twitch. Well, it's that switch. That's all it was. It's not even the radio. It's an MC60 microphone with a dirty switch. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the heaters off. Let those tubes cool down. So it worked. So after that, of course, the radio is still, upside down on the workbench here, and I'm okay. This thing's got output now. So I called a buddy up and said, hey, get on, pick a frequency, 40, 80, something like that. We're just across town from each other. We can do some ground wave. And see if we can talk to each other. And lo and behold, took a little bit of, finding him on here. This is close, but he's running a digital output. It's dead on. So, and this is actually pretty close. I think I was off a kilohertz. Maybe a kilohertz or maybe 2 on the display here. And we matched up just fine and had a pleasant 10 or 15 minute conversation back and forth. So it works. It transmits. Just a dirty switch on the microphone that I was using to test the radio was giving me all that trouble of trying to figure out what's going on. And I figured, there shouldn't be anything wrong with the microphone. I've used the microphone before, but I've used it in 500 ohm impedance on a different radio. So that's basically the story. And yeah, it made me laugh afterwards. I had basically purposely built 2 pieces of equipment to try and test a radio, which these will come in handy with other radios, so it's not like I did it for nothing. But it basically boiled down to it wasn't even the radio. So it's working. It does sideband. Now, the bands are a little up on this one, down on that one as far as power output. So I'm thinking there's some other things we need to look at on this radio. Maybe some alignment, just tweaking some of the output and stuff on the radio. Try to do a little bit of alignment on it might help. 10 meters is still way down. It's doing 2 watts, which tells me maybe there's something in the output tuning on 10 meters that just isn't quite right on this. I mean, I can kind of make it play when I'm doing the tuning, but at a very, very low level. So I got to try and see if I can figure out what that problem is. And that might be an alignment deal too. The owner said that the entire time he said the radio 10 meters has been down. So it's not. I think he's saying maybe 5 watts out. So it's not something that's happened in the near past. But I think that's something we'll try to look at. He's never really used the radio on 10 meters anyhow. This radio is mostly used on, I think, like an 80 and 40. But let's see if we can't try and figure that out. There's a couple things I've looked at. There's a wire back in here that apparently can sometimes short and cause that problem. It's not that. I'm really thinking maybe it's just it doesn't have good drive as far as being peaked on the alignment, maybe on the output there. So we'll try to run through that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the full alignment. For one, part of that is on the pre-select, and that's pretty finicky from what I'm understanding. You got to get rid of the little glue they use to hold the springs in place where those slugs raise up and down when you're using the pre-selector. From what I've heard, you can pretty much leave those alone and do after that, tuning here, because you have changes in capacitance and whatnot as the radio gets older that might need to be compensated for. But this radio is doing sideband. It's been on the air and it's receiving good. We might even be able to peak that up a little bit too, get a little bit better receive out of it too. This radio really has not had hardly anything done to it besides the mic connector, or not the mic, but the power connector that was we had visited with early in the series. But it's coming together. We've got receive, we've got transmit now. We're just down on some bands, and 10 meters is way down. So I think we're making progress. It's slow progress, mostly due to my schedule, but we're getting there. And when we get this one kind of finished up, we'll maybe be able to look at that double E, the 101 double E, find out what it's not doing any output. That one might be a little bit of an adventure. Like I said, I did take the tubes out of this one, stuck them in that one just real quick to see if I could get bias, and I had no indication on the meter of bias. So we either got a meter problem, but I'm really not suspecting it being a metering problem. Not saying it's not, because it wasn't doing any output either. So the tubes are not emitting. And when I put these tubes out of this radio just temporarily into it, I couldn't get anything out of it either. I mean, I should have been able to get at least something out of it. It's hard to kind of tune it when you can't do the initial IC reading, especially to make sure you're peaking it with the pre-select. It's like step 2 of tuning. But yeah, we'll carry on with this one. hopefully we can get it pretty close to good. I don't know if we'll get it perfect, but it's definitely be something that can be back on the air instead of sitting on a shelf. Or maybe he'll want to set it on a shelf, but he'll know it at least does something. All right, well, I just thought I'd give you an update for the radio room, and why I hadn't had a video out in so long. It's not like I'd quit doing anything. I had done some work. I know there are some people, according to from the comments I've seen, that are kind of following through a little bit of these series. I normally don't like to do 3 radios at once. This one's pretty much the one I'm focusing on right now. And then we'll get the double E, see if we can do something with the double E. And there's still some other radios that have come in to the radio room. Some friends and stuff wanted me to look at, kind of work on a little bit. We might get some of them mixed in as far as on videos, or I might just see if I can't knock them out, get them out of here. But I'd really want to get back to the FT101E, which is the first 101 in the radio room that started the rest of them showing up. So I tell you one thing right now, 101s love each other, and they like to hang out together apparently, because there's 3 of them in the radio room now. And we'd like to get them back to their owners so they can go play. Listen, 101s, you guys can't just have a big party in the radio room. You guys got to get back to your owners. So, all right. I'm glad you stopped by. Like I said, just want to give a little quick update on the radio room, update on this one, and kind of tell you kind of what the plan is going forward. I know there's some that are following the 101E series, and it's pretty much stopped for right now. I apologize for that, but I'd rather get somebody else's radio out of here and fixed up, and then I'll work on mine when there's time. I think I even mentioned in that original series that it might be a long time to get through that one. Just time scheduling, getting helping other people out, getting their radios going and stuff. That's a little more bigger priority than getting mine going. But thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you next time.